This is a Clouds weather alert.
Good late Thursday, early Friday. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center right now, giving a look at those temperatures across the region. This late hour, you see some 50s on the board, also some 60s. I know at night we're getting fairly cool, but during the day, we've been warming up some. I know as we get toward this, Friday ahead, we're not going to warm up quite as much as we did yesterday. Had some cool air, try to get in terms of just the overall pattern, but not making a huge difference overall as we're kind of looking at things here. Even though it'll be a little cool here at times, it's pretty nice weather. But as we look ahead toward next week, it will be warming up a good bit, and then a threat for some strong and severe storms will enter into our areas. We're looking ahead toward Wednesday. We're in alert mode, partially because of our risk for our area. South Georgia already under a risk for severe weather for next Wednesday. We're talking about, all the way in to March. I know that's just, tomorrow where it officially starts, but I'm not talking about March 1st. I'm talking about March 5th here. With the risk of severe weather in our area already. So almost a week out, and March 4th here for areas further off toward the west. So I really need to go ahead and monitor things here. Be staying tuned for the latest updates on the overall scenario. I'm going to go ahead and zoom out just a little bit here. You see the pattern looks pretty calm right now, but it's going to turn nasty here. I mean, weather pattern overall, you see some lighting off the East Coast, but overall the weather pattern, looks pretty good, but it's going to turn nasty here next week. Going to be dangerous here for a lot of folks potentially, so we need to really be careful. We really need to be monitoring here the overall scenario as we do look ahead here into toward the timeline. In fact, let me go ahead, jump on over toward the graphics here, and you kind of get an idea of what we're talking about in the overall meteorology community here. I know the Storm Prediction Center, they're a group of meteorologists there in Norman, Oklahoma, part of the overall weather enterprise here, the government weather enterprise, and on Tuesday, they've already put out a risk there, 30% risk of severe storms. Even already talking about strong tornadoes, already using that word and this far out for areas maybe around Jackson, Mississippi, or Greenville, Mississippi, maybe it's Shreveport, Louisiana, or Monroe, Louisiana, or it could even be in East Texas there, Lufkin there, an area involved in this. So, Tyler area will be watching as well. So, nasty situation. And on Wednesday, you see the overall threat spread east and already a 15% risk for our South Georgia counties, a bit of North Florida as well, but mainly talking about South Georgia all the way up into Virginia here, and just that region in there into toward the Mid-Atlantic. I mean, that is problematic here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the situation. I mean, you can see here as we're giving you the latest, you really need to stay tuned for the latest because this could be pretty nasty here. I mean, already talking about strong tornadoes. Next Tuesday, it might not even just be confined to that orange area. Could even get some really dangerous weather. It could end up being a little bit more, on the edge of that and getting in towards some of the yellow zone there too. I know different things going on like Mardi Gras award toward Louisiana here coming up, and that period there. So got to be really mindful of what could happen as we're looking at things, as we're tracking the overall scenario. And you see again Wednesday there, it could be very problematic as we're looking here at risk. We could very well have a risk in our North Florida counties as well, but South Georgia already. I mean, that's a day 7 type of risk. You rarely see that. So, it could focus a little bit in a different spot, maybe further, out of our area, or it could focus further south. You just never know here. We're going to have to pay attention, but this is a guide to tell you we could have some real danger here next week. It's not a guarantee because we're so far out. We're already in alert mode now. We have that logo red. We want you to be making sure you're staying tuned. Of course, we'll be on next week as it's warranted. We may have to just, be on so long there Tuesday into Wednesday. We don't have a full update early next week, for that late Tuesday, early Wednesday timeline and time frame. But we see we got to just really pay attention right now and be monitoring here what's going on with this. As you go ahead and see now, the tornado safety tips. I know these are so important to keep in mind when a tornado watch is issued by the Weather Service offices, in terms of different expansions sometimes, but the Storm Prediction Center, there is the one that does issue those overall. That means conditions are favorable for tornadic activity. You want to stay tuned for the latest and charged devices and have multiple ways to receive alerts. And then the actual weather forecast offices there from the National Weather Service, they issue the actual warnings here, like Jackson or Tallahassee here, that group of meteorologists that are the ones that issue it, and then the information gets disseminated by media partners here. So when there's a tornado warning, that means you need to try to avoid taking shelter in a mobile home. You need to get inside a sturdy building. You need to put as many walls between you and the outside as possible, and protect yourself from flying debris by putting on a bicycle helmet, football helmet, baseball helmet, something like that. You want to have those shoes on there in case, there's debris in the aftermath that could cut your feet up. So you gotta be really careful. Tornado warnings get issued by the National Weather Service offices all over the country, whether it's around here or whether it's, let's say, in toward areas like Jackson, Mississippi. That office takes care of that region. Memphis, Tennessee has an office for their county warning area. Very important, the overall service provided there, because they also have the radars, and without the radars, there's, going to be a situation where it's much harder to understand what's going on with the meteorology. Those National Weather Service radar sites, so crucial. I mean, some TV stations here and there have radars, but those aren't available, to see here, just in a wide realm. But Weather Service radars, cover a pretty good bit of the country. I mean, there's some spots that aren't as good. We'd like to get those fixed someday, but a lot of the country with that, coverage here, we see those debris signatures. That's one of the many things you can see on that technology. You can see the storm relative velocity. You see rotation on the Doppler algorithm. So very important, those National Weather Service Doppler radars that are used by media, whether it's me here on this platform or local media or national, weather networks and the like. So important, and you just gotta be weather alert. This could be very dangerous here next week. Very substantial threat as we're looking ahead. Not a guarantee, but if it verifies based on just the overall meteorological pattern, we could be talking about, one of those days that could be, it won't maybe just be a 2 out of 5 risk type of day. It could be, instead of that's a slight risk, but still, dangerous, can be deadly. We could be talking about the Storm Prediction Center going with a 3 out of 5 risk and enhanced to 4 out of 5 a moderate, or maybe, let's hope not, but a 5 out of 5 even a high risk. It's not something that's, really able to be forecasted this far out, but that is something that some of the analogs have even showed here, looking back at some past events. So, gotta be really careful here. Those are the days that have the potential to be the deadliest, so it's really important. It's not a guarantee this far out. Things can change and will change as the data gets inputted, into the models. There's different things involved in that, like weather balloons here, for instance. Again, from the National Weather Service partners, the government offices there, those weather forecast offices, that data has to get input into the models. After the meteorologists send things up there, get that data, and then based on whatever's in the data there, that helps to kind of determine the now starting point there in the model. And then as you look ahead here, in the timeline, you can kind of just watch the overall progression here based on those inputs here, because the computers, they have to have an input to have an output. So as you kind of go ahead and look at things here, rainfall forecast, Weather Prediction Center, that's another government group there. As we're looking, part of the overall weather enterprise, and that's up there in Maryland. You see these outlooks, that I show you here, and these forecasts, like this one right here. And you have interactive radar available, cloudy.com/radar. But as you see here, you can see not so much rain as maybe what you would think as you look at this. the forecast I've been showing already, it's going to be a situation we'll have, maybe discrete storms that could be all by themselves. That could be the storm mode, and then we, could have spots that don't just get, a whole bunch of rain, but instead, some of these spots could get, substantial severe weather, maybe some tornadic activity, or that could be, on the higher end of things, the higher end of the scale. So as we kind of look at things here, I'm going to go ahead and pull up our EF scale. I'm going to switch sources here real quick. You see considerable damage in EF2. And that means we could even, if we get something like that, seeming like it's in progress, you get a PDS type of tornado warning from the local weather service offices. And that really escalates the level of concern here when you see stuff like that happening here in the meteorology world. So definitely going to be paying attention to that. Let's go ahead now and go back on over here toward the graphics. I'm going to pull that back on in right now, the other mode of this at least, and you kind of get an idea that the word like Tallahassee expecting only 1/2 inch to 3/4, because it's going to be a pretty quick moving system. We're not talking about maybe a big flash flooding time. I mean, some areas could still use rain, but this isn't going to be a situation where you get a whole bunch of rain. It's going to be more about the adverse consequences here. I mean, you see Stark only 1/4 to 1/2 inch, maybe. I mean, it could even only, that's an isolated area. Some areas might be closer just to 1/10 to 1/4, according to this. So you got to be really careful here in terms of just, that any lightning strikes here could cause problems if there's some dry brush and the like. But just got to be very mindful here as we look at it. I know there'll be different sporting events, coming up next week, and we'll be watching the weather for those here, depending on the exact timelines here across the southeast. But I know toward Jacksonville, the Gate River will run. The weather should be pretty good for that here Saturday. Those temperatures, they like, the runners do the core temperatures here as we're looking at things there. I mean, very, what you would want to see in terms of some of that, just watching the coverage of that over the years. I mean, as we're kind of looking at things there. Let's go ahead and see here, though, our covered area reports from Bradford County. We've been on and we'll be on for any tornado warning storm, that moved to the 62 counties here in the, period there as we're looking toward Wednesday. As we're looking toward Wednesday here, March 5th, 2025. Got to be very mindful of what could happen here and giving you the latest on all the different platforms. As we're on Facebook, as we're on Twitter/X, YouTube, Twitch, cloudweather.com. So make sure you stay tuned there. I know we're watching all that. Watching a fog thread here as we look ahead. Something that, at least in some spots, could be, existing. So when that does take place, slow down and give yourself extra time to reach your destination. Make sure your vehicle is visible as possible to other vehicles by using your low beam headlights, and leave plenty of room between you and the vehicle in front of you. And then as we go ahead and see that extended forecast, you see pretty low rain chances here, in the next few days. But as we get toward Thursday, you see next week that 30% chance as things are kind of at the back end. But Wednesday is going to be the focal point. Some severe storms possible, especially in South Georgia. And you see just the temperature trends. We're kind of seeing an overall pattern here will be above average as that severe weather potential is coming in. More energy for storms to take advantage of. So, something that we'll be monitoring here very closely in the meteorology world. So we'll be back early next week, of course, with it covered as it is warranted. For some reason, we don't have to be on a whole bunch before next Wednesday here. As we're looking during the day, we'll be on with our late Tuesday, early Wednesday update. But if we really have to be on with, the severe threat coverage here as it's going on up, there's like a really substantial risk on Tuesday. Could be a moderate high risk even off to the west. We'll have to do special coverage of the national threat here. And then that, then we'll be doing our local special coverage on Wednesday, and we won't have a formal update, but then more than likely, depending on how things would be, then we'd have a formal update late Thursday though anyway. So just be looking out for the latest. If we have to come on before, that Tuesday time frame, then we will, because it's all about protecting you, your friends, and your family here at Clouds Weather. So That's to pretty much do it here for tonight. Again, going to be watching that threat here coming up as we're looking here in the days to come. You know, that lightning there doesn't mean too much off the East Coast right here in this pattern. Next week here, that's going to be the problem. That's going to be the problem here, folks. This could be a big deal. Not a guarantee, but the pattern does suggest here we really, really have to pay attention. It's rare. It hadn't happened that much over the years to get a risk that high, an orange type of risk, a 30% severe risk that far out for areas of Texas and Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Be a tornado outbreak, a severe weather outbreak. Not a guarantee. It can change. You know, as the data comes in, things could change for the better, or they could, you know, look similar and confidence increases in a worst case scenario. Not a guarantee. We're still several days out and things sometimes really change significantly to where it kind of can, you know, not be something that's near as big of a deal as we think it would be right now. It can kind of bust per se because we're so far out here. But we're going into the weekend. I want you to be thinking about what could happen. No, it's not a hurricane, so you're not, you know, stocking up on supplies in the traditional sense maybe, but, you know, a few things here and there. Have on hand, maybe flashlights. Just, you know, if you're in these areas here, you know, it wouldn't be a terrible idea to update that emergency supply kit here in case there's power outages as we're looking ahead. The wind field could be pretty significant with this, and you know, could have a pretty decent amount of power outages in some of these states. You know, Alabama and Mississippi, some of those areas in there. It's not a guarantee, but definitely a possibility. That vicinity, them, you know, you can't guarantee what state it would be. But you know, just depends. That's, you know, the overall situation. Of course, this run threat could really, you know, squeeze out of this something really substantial as well. So, you know, just be ready for this. This could be, you know, one of the bigger threats we're going to have all year. Not a guarantee, but we've got to really be careful here. You know, as I mentioned already, not trying to scare you and saying this part of it, but what I want to just mention again is that, you know, have that bicycle helmet on hand or a football helmet to protect your head. If you have a tornado, it's also important, you know, and that tornado warning is also important. To not be in a mobile home in a situation like this when you have a tornado watch and play, because you know, a stronger tornado could completely just wipe that mobile home off that foundation and you know, just flip it and break it to pieces really. So not a good situation. Not a good situation at all, but it can change. You know, we're just really concerned about these areas here. Yeah, you know, kind of starting to get in the early part of spring break here too. Not folks maybe are spring breaking per se, if that's a phrase, as we're looking here in some of these areas, you know, on Tuesday as much as maybe on Wednesday on the East Coast. Some folks might be, but as we're kind of just tracking the overall situation, you just have to stay tuned here for the latest, and that's what, you know, everybody will be doing here in the weather world as we look ahead toward next week. I know, very important. It's the last day of February, and this is definitely the time of year where, you know, significant severe weather can happen. And we just have to be kind of mindful of it here. You know, it's been pretty good beach weather here for some of us here across the region, but as we look ahead, you know, as we look ahead here, coming on up, we gotta be really mindful here, you know, of this severe weather potential. Make sure you have multiple ways to get alerts here. As we're looking, you see Alexandria, Louisiana, and Shreveport, Louisiana. The Arklamis is in there. You have Monroe and Ruston, and you have areas off to the west like Lufkin and Tyler, and east there like Greenville and Jackson, even southern Arkansas there. You know, in that really dangerous, you know, setup, it would seem. In this area where the orange means the greatest danger could shift a little, but that's where we're focusing our attention right now. So that's kind of the storyline for the time being here. As we're kind of looking at things, as we're kind of tracking things here in toward the weather center. I know it's just all about protecting you, your friends, your family here with this type of situation. You know, we always try to stay on top of things here at Clouds Weather and in the Weather Center. So that's to do it. We'll be back here again as things warrant. Just see if there's any questions or comments here. I know it's pretty late. Just gonna try to check here, at least the YouTube platform, to see if there's anything as we kind of look at the overall maps, and you don't see anything. Have a good night. Stay safe. Have a good weekend. I know there's some events going on this weekend, and locally the weather's to be, pretty good for those. That's the good news. So, try to enjoy things as we're kind of the calm before the storm. Granted, I mean, Stark, Gainesville aren't going to get a whole bunch of rain, so it'll be, a situation where we have some storms, in that area. But it's if it's may not be, near as big of a deal toward North Central Florida, but it's not, something we can rule out here at this point. But the confidence is greater in the areas that are highlighted here with the Storm Prediction Center information. So please stay tuned here for the latest info.